Welcome to the Howzit.ca podcast, where we share insightful stories and advice aimed at helping South Africans settle, explore, and succeed in Canada.
Hi, my name is Melanie and welcome to the Howzit.ca podcast. Today on our show, I'm joined by Gerhard and Hettie Greeve, who has a story to tell about their journey from South Africa through America and all the way into Canada. Gerhard and his wife are the proud owners of Lekker Landing, a second home to many Saffas when they land in Canada. The story started 20 years ago, and with many twists and turns, they are now settled in the beautiful little town named Stony Creek in Ontario. What's even more incredible to their story is that they've decided to do this trip at the age of 46, an age where many start thinking of retirement. This family decided to change the trajectory of their story, as you'll find out in our podcast. Gerhard and Hettie, welcome to this episode of Howzit. It's great to have you guys on board.
Hey, Melanie. Yeah, likewise. Nice talking to you.
Hi, Melanie. Yeah, hi, Hettie. So let's go back to the beginning, guys. You left South Africa in 2000, and at that stage, your children were aged. Tell us more.
They were 9 and 6 at the time, still in elementary school or in primary school, as we know it in South Africa.
And so you've got two kids, 9 and they are now, what is it, 29 and 26, right?
That's correct.
And how did it start out in America?
Well, it's actually a long story. I first came to America in the early 80s for business, and I felt so at home, and I always admired how the Americans were doing business and the way they live. So it's always been an admiration of mine or a plan of mine to eventually move there. And in 99, my oldest son got accepted at a flight school in Florida. And we put him in the flight school in Orlando. And one came to visit him in late 99 and decided this was the good time to make the move. So Hettie and I packed up in March of 2000 and brought the kids over, settled in Fort Lauderdale at first, and eventually ended up purchasing a home in Lake Worth, Florida, where we had the kids attend school. And we set up home, we had the jobs going, and everything was nice. It was actually, as we would call it in the beginning, the honeymoon phase. You know, when you first move overseas, it's a lot of fun and a lot of adventure, lots of things to see and do. But soon the reality set in, and we settled down, got busy with work. And of course, not too long, we started missing the family. But we did it for our children, as most South Africans do. And we made the USA our home. And things developed from there.
And Hettie, at your age, was it difficult to move? I mean, there's many South Africans that says that it's too scary for them to move after the age of 40. What was your experience like?
No, it wasn't that difficult. I mean, for sure, missing people and missing the known from where you come from, all your history in South Africa. In the beginning, I mean, it's the ups and downs, but it wasn't that difficult.
So, and the kids, did they adapt quite easily? How was that for them?
Yeah, this is something I'd like to add to tell anybody that plans to come over. You're always so concerned about the kids. Let me assure you, they settle in so quickly. That should be the last of your worries. The schools are fantastic. You don't need to be in a fancy school or a private school. And this goes for Canada as well. The schools are really, really great. And the kids adjust so quickly. Within 3 months, they start losing their South African accents. And not too long, when you meet Americans or Canadians, they would say, well, we can tell your accent, but why don't your kids have an accent?
Yeah, I had the same.
Funny.
Yeah, I had the same. And I agree with you with the kids. Just they adapt so quickly and so easily. Yet they are not the biggest problem of that one. So I absolutely agree with you. What questions weighed the heaviest in your opinion, when you looked at immigration?
Well, first of all, it's all the visa or work permit and the formalities that you have to go through with immigration. Hettie and I did our own paperwork for the USA. It's quite different from Canada. We ended up doing our Canadian immigration ourselves as well. So it was quite a challenge. So that is a big step you have to take, is to go through the websites Those days in 2000, it sounds not too long ago, but the internet wasn't all that complete. There weren't all the WhatsApp groups, all the Facebook pages and groups being created. So you're pretty much left on your own to go through the network and find out how the immigration system works. So for us, it was, okay, we made the move, and are we going to be able to stay? I think that's the biggest question. While you're in a work permit, or even when you have a green card or a permanent resident, will you actually end up staying? And I think we realized very early on, you're not sure until you have citizenship. Then you know, well, this is home. There's no turning back. Not that we wanted to, but you've always been very cautious, of course, what is going to happen in the long run. And secondly was, at our age, will we be able to build up a pension?
Yes, that's a big question.
It's a very important question. And my advice is you should connect with a financial advisor, somebody, and I know there's people in the Howzit group that does this very well, that can advise you and take care of that for you. You can always bring over your South African retirements. You can always sell your South African property. But those are the things that we had to really think hard and long about. What do we do with our retirement? And will we be able to build enough capital overseas so we can finally settle and retire here? So to me, those were the biggest concerns. The daily life carries on. Home is where your heart is. Where you live does not really make a difference. You do your job, you come home, and that is your little sanctuary. So where you end up settling, be assured you will probably move once or twice, maybe 3 or 4 times. That's just the way things turn out when you immigrate. It's not where you land, is where you're going to be tied down. So yeah, those were the main points.
And right now, your children, as I'm aware, they scattered through America and Canada. How do you, can you tell us more about where they are at the moment?
Yes, I'd like to say, Etienne, I was very smart about that. We left them wherever we moved. We left some of them behind, so we can have a nice and peaceful retirement. No, I'm just joking. It ended up like you can imagine. My son ended up finishing his flight school. Unfortunately, 9/11 happened, and he couldn't fly for the American Airlines at all, not being a citizen yet. He ended up with a second career, met an American lady, they got married, and they ended up settling in South Carolina, the USA. They've been there for many, many years, 3 grandchildren. Of course, our things in America didn't work out exactly as we were hoped. The green card evaded us. A long story how that happened with the business that I opened up and the strict regulations of having a business in the US and how many Americans you employ, etc., etc. So at one point, we decided to look at Canada, and we then reapplied and actually immigrated a second time to Vancouver, Canada, where our children ended up in school, of course, finished, studied, and made careers for themselves there. They're all very successful. And when we decided, due to the nature of the work that we do in engineering, Hettie and I worked for engineering firms, fairly large ones, and where the projects was, that's where we went. And we lived in Vancouver. We moved to Regina following a project. And finally, we moved over to Ontario, again, following a project. And that's when we decided this is where we'd like to be, on the east coast of the continent. We have access to the Pearson International Airport. We can fly to Europe, to South Africa quite easily. We can drive into the United States. Of course, as you know, Ontario borders on New York. And we have access to the US and, in some cases, inexpensive flights. If you cross the border, you can always pick up a good deal flying internally or into the United States. So, yeah, the kids ended up where they found their careers mostly. And of course, they made friends. They had friends from school, and they decided to settle there. And yeah, they're happy where they are, and that's all that matters to us at this time.
Absolutely, as long as they're a phone call away. So
yeah, like our family in South Africa, absolutely.
Yes, and I think in Canada or in Canada, they say that there's this thing called snowbirds. So I think you guys have got a great option being snowbirds if you one day when you finally retire, because you'll have some place in Vancouver and you'll have a holiday home in Florida with the family. So I think you've set yourself up very well.
Yeah, well, that's good planning. No, it actually just happened by chance. So
So you've lived between Vancouver and Toronto and Regina, and each person will tell you a million stories on why they prefer which one. And if you speak to someone in Halifax, they'll tell you Halifax is the place to be. If you are in Alberta, no, you've got to be. I think sometimes people are a bit shaky about Saskatchewan, because I think it takes a certain strength to live in Saskatchewan. But you've lived in a few places around now. Which one, and everyone is unique, which one's your favorite?
it's difficult to answer. Each one has its own uniqueness. I called it a working holiday at some point. Every time we move, there's so much to see and enjoy that each province, each city has its own highlights. We thoroughly enjoyed each and every place. Yeah, Vancouver is awesome. It rains um, a lot actually. When we first moved there in November of 2005, it rained for 28 days non-stop.
Oh my goodness.
And it was quite a shock to the system. You know, we moved to Florida just to get used to the sunshine, driving on the wrong side of the road, the culture, etc. And when we moved to Vancouver, sawing all the rain, it kind of reminds us of Cape Town. In fact, Vancouver is known to be the twin city of Cape Town. It's beautiful. The famous saying, and it's very true, you can actually go skiing in the morning on the hills or mountains right next to Vancouver City, downtown, and you can play golf the afternoon. And that is very true. So we love that. There's lots to explore in British Columbia. There's salmon fishing, golfing. Oh, there's so many things to do. And of course, it borders with the Washington State, and the Oregon and California coastline is very accessible. Regina, on the other hand, yes, it gets very cold in winter. Lots of wind blowing most of the time. Even in summer, you would braai or barbecue. And not soon after that, you would rather go indoors because of the wind. The snow, it does snow a lot. The minus 30, minus 40 Celsius temperatures are really gruesome with wind blowing most of the time. Actually, it's the first time that I had snow blown into my ears horizontally, not
Wow.
from the top. But yes, the skies are beautiful. There's the most beautiful cloud formations. There's all the birds that migrate back and forth over North America that passes over. It really has a beauty of its own. And the prairies, of course, being the food basket of Canada, they plant canola, mustard, so flaxseed. There's so many crops being built up there or planted up there that it makes for a wonderful sight when everything is in blossom and growing. 20,000 acres and so forth. Amazing to see how the people have adapted and lived there. But a beautiful province, Saskatchewan. It's a tongue twister when you first get here.
Yeah.
And most people will actually know Saskatoon, which is about 2 hours drive from Regina. But again, a farming community, it kind of reminds us a lot of Bloemfontein. Very friendly people. In fact, all over Canada, we find the population to be very friendly, and more so like our South Africans. The Americans are quite different. America is everything, where Canada is really a melting pot of immigrants. People our age or even younger would tell you of their parents or grandparents that not too long immigrated here. So we kind of fit in easier, settled in easier. They have the same type of culture that we used to in South Africa. They also grew up under the Queen, the British system, like we did as youngsters. So a lot of familiarity. But yes, back to the cities. Ontario, on the other hand, is massive. People underestimate how big this province is. I remember when we moved from Regina to Ontario, the last 2 days of our 3-day trip, we were traveling in Ontario. Just from the time we crossed the border till the time we got to our home was an actual 2-day trip. Unthinkable. But then again, if you consider the speed limit of 90 kilometers an hour on the major highway, it's to understand why it took so long. But yes, it's got a beauty of its own. We have all the Great Lakes around us. We have Niagara Falls, of course, the city of Toronto itself, beautiful. Burlington, Oakville, Milton, all those cities are beautiful to have lunches and dinners with, go for hikes, cycling. rollerblading, fishing. There's so much to do. Yeah, more can I say? Each and every city has its own beauty and its own culture. But again, like I mentioned earlier on, your heart is where your home is. You know, it's all adventure until you settle down. And then once you settle in your home, that's your place and that's where you come home to. And whether you live here or in the Free State or in Dubai, I'm sure that's your home. So to us, it doesn't make much of a difference. And I would not recommend or advise somebody to really put their heart on a city, a town, unless they've been here for a while, had a good chance to look what they like, look at the traffic pattern, look at the transport, look at the schools in the area, look at your neighbors. There's so much that you have to consider before you rent something long term or you buy something to finally settle down. As I mentioned, the chances are very, very good that you will eventually find another opportunity, a better opportunity, and probably relocate once or twice in your time overseas.
That's some great advice. It's just resettle because it takes some time. So don't be so hard on yourself, knowing that you're going to land up in one place and stay in one place. Keep an open mind of where you're going, and know that it might change. But that's all about the excitement and the exploration of a big place like Canada. So
yeah, definitely.
So your journey took you all the way to Stony Creek. So tell us about, why did you decide this is the place to be, and that you would want to settle? And just tell us, where is Stony Creek?
Well, Stony Creek borders the Lake Ontario. If you look at the shoreline of Lake Ontario coming down from Toronto, you'll find all the major cities that people might see on the map: Mississauga, Oakville, Burlington, Hamilton, and then just around the bend, Stony Creek, and it carries on, Grimsby and Lincoln, all the way to Niagara Falls. So Stony Creek is halfway between Toronto and Niagara Waterfalls, to give you an idea. It's a little town settled right next to the QEW highway, or Highway 403. So we have quick access to the highway, quick access to the lake. They're building a new GO train station in our town or city. There's approximately 550,000 people living in the greater Hamilton area, which doesn't include Burlington and Milton, those cities. Yeah, that's where Stony Creek is. And lots of history in this area too. Once upon a time, Canada had to fight for its independence against America. And this all happened in 1812. And you can, in Stony Creek, there's the Heritage Museum where the actual battle took place, the 1812 battle between America and Canada. So a lot of history around, if you're a history buff. And of course, for our South Africans that love the outdoors, the Bruce Trail is a hiking trail well known across Canada. It starts at Niagara Falls and it runs approximately 700 kilometers north into the province of Ontario. And it runs about 300 meters from our home on the escarpment is where you can join the hiking trail and knock your socks off, as they say.
You can make it a bucket list to do the Bruce Trail, because you can start at certain points and end again, and you'll just be able to ride through that at certain points as you go along. So, it would be great for adventure. You can hike it, you can run it, you can cycle through it.
Mountain bike,
it's great. Absolutely.
And just for the record, we don't have bears in this vicinity, where in Vancouver, we actually saw black bears walking in the streets. And it's for real.
But there is some, you would, because it's a smaller town, you would have small animals, I'm sure. We've seen some in Toronto quite often. You guys must see some as well, quite a bit.
Yeah, there's lots of wildlife. In fact, it's more wild than South Africa. We have deer, bokkies, walking through the gardens. We have skunks, possums, lots of squirrels. Many different birds come and take a bath. We eat some feed from the feeders, hummingbirds. No, it's really beautiful. The nature is really awesome. It's amazing how nature and the Canadian population coexist. It's actually very, very nice to experience this.
It is great. So in Stony Creek, you now have this great little business, which is flourishing and it's really doing well, called Lekker Landing. It's got such a Saffas flavor to us. Tell us more about that one.
Yeah, that was actually part of our retirement plan coming into Canada when we were close to our 50s. We actually said, well, we have to supplement our retirement. And we specifically looked for a home that we could subdivide into two residents. And we found the place in Stony Creek. It met all our expectations. We divided into two fully separated houses. And the home that we use for Lekker Landing is a fully furnished, fully equipped 3-bedroom house with all the utensils, blankets, pillows, cutlery, uh, pancake makers, microwave, everything you can think about, washer, dryer. So it's a home away from home. So the idea with Lekker Landing was that we would pick people up from the airport. We love meeting people and actually helping them because, as we said, we immigrated ourselves twice, and we know the tremendous stress that it places on a family. Where are you going to go once you get to the airport? Driving on the wrong side of the road, all of those present big challenges to families. And the kids will be tired, and do we have a car seat? So all those things we've taken into consideration. We refurbished the house, made it very South African. And yeah, our service is then to pick people up, bring them home, give them a home away from home, help them, guide them, take them through an orientation service that we provide, where we get all their SIN numbers, their health cards, make bank appointments for them to open bank accounts, cell phone accounts, health cards, driver's license, the very important driver's license. We have some relationships with car rental companies now, getting them good rental rates. The Costco people, or the macro people, as you in South Africa would know it as, know us well. We typically help them to enroll. We provide them with a lease contract. So when they move on and try to get their own rental home, they have some reference that we provide them, which puts them in a good position to rent their own house. And eventually we connect them with realtors, of course, to find homes, like people in the Howzit group, um, as well as eventually buying a home if they so desire. So a comprehensive relocation service. And I can say we thoroughly enjoyed it, or still enjoying it.
And
We have some excellent reviews. Yeah.
Yes, we've had some great friends amongst us that stayed with you guys, and they've mentioned that it's just great to not have another stress about immediately finding where you need to settle down immediately. It's just to give you a breathing space to just land and get the important things, and you take care of all of that, which just makes it takes that extra pressure off you. And,
yeah, from the feedback we've received, we find that if they stay for us for 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even up to a month, that really gives them time to get their feet under them. They get to see what it looks like. They get to know what the shops are. And as you know, Melanie, there's all these chain groups. So once you know one type of grocery store, you'll find it in no matter whatever city you move to in Canada. The same group runs shops all over the country. So once you are familiar with what these shops offer, you know where to go for what. And just that first 2 or 3 weeks, of course, meeting up with a realtor and let them show you the homes. I highly recommend that. To look at a video and somebody walking through and this is the bathroom, this is the kitchen, it doesn't really give you a feeling. As you know, the homes are built very differently. The layouts are very differently. You have to walk through a couple of homes before you find something that suits your specific style and your requirements. So yeah, it's a good place to just get your feet under you, get orientated, and then once the stress of getting settled is out, connect up with a realtor and then get serious about renting something more permanent. And of course, the closer to your workplace, the better. Of course, traffic can be very challenging in a big community like Toronto with 10 million people.
Absolutely. So when you pick up these guys, you know, the first comments that people tell you when they land here, it's that real deer in the headlights kind of moments. What are they sharing with you? What kind of fears and concerns do they have when they land here?
I can use some of the things we hear often. One of the I name a few. Look, it's so clean. I can't believe it's very tidy. And then, Papa, look at that massive bucky. We should get one of those. And how cold does it really get? It's not as cold as we expected it. Here it gets really, really cold, and it's really nice here, and it's much warmer than we expected. Where is the snow? Oh, oh, look at the prices. It's very much the same as South Africa, except lamb. That's really expensive. So it varies, But these are the most common comments we hear from people and see their reactions. It's actually quite funny. But we love what we do and we love showing them the ropes.
And I bet you those questions change as people get settled in and they realize, it, it's not that cold. But then, so that might be their first concern when they get here, immediately say, do I need to buy the jackets before the time or not? But once you're here for a week or two and you over those kind of basic questions, then the concerns and some other, fears come in, and which you guys can help with, and to say, let's put that down and just understand, lay it out, what is going to happen, how the typical experience, what have you found about that? Are people changing as they're kind of settling in, they're finding out the things that they feared wasn't really to be feared as much, and put their mind at ease. What are as it goes along, what questions do you find then?
Yeah, you hit it on the head. It's actually very, very true. Yes, they come with a lot of preconceived ideas of what they're getting themselves into. But I would say a week later, once they're over the jet lag and they realize they're safe and everything works, the system works, people are really friendly, helpful. No matter where you go to government offices, things do run very, very well. And the society is most definitely geared for immigration. I would say that's about the US. It's not as geared up to welcome and handle immigrants as Canada is. It's by far better. But yes, then the tune changed very rapidly. Reality sets in, and especially the people that come here with permanent residency, bless their souls, this is a big burden off your shoulders if you end up with a permanent residence card instead of being on a work permit and still have that 1 year or 2 year sword over your head. Will I actually cope at work? Will the boss like me? Will I still have a job in a year or two? Do we need to go back? What happens if we lose our job? Recession, COVID-19 is the buzzword the last 2 weeks here in Canada and all across the world. So yes, then the questions change. Then they need resumes and they need to find a job and they need pointers. They want to connect with other South Africans and our networks. Who do we know? That's where, again, Howzit comes in very, very useful, where we have a complete one-stop shop. We have financial people in Howzit. We have people helping with resumes, cover letters, all those things that you always worry about when you're still in South Africa. What do you do with your retirement? How do you financially immigrate? The real question sets in. Where do we rent a home? What do you think of these prices? Oh, car insurance is so expensive. Where can we get a better deal? Do we buy a car? Oh, we haven't got a driver's license yet. How long will that take? So then reality, then you can tell they're getting into it. They're getting their teeth into immigrating into Canada. And that's exactly where we fill the niche.
And have you had the guys that do land with you? I recall when we chatted some time ago that not everybody, the thing is that not everybody that lands, for instance, in Toronto would land up in Oakville or Milton or those kind of things. People tend to go, they scatter across Canada, depending on what their requirements would be. Have you seen that when people leave from you? I know that you've recently had a couple that didn't settle in Toronto itself. Tell us more about that.
Oh, definitely. No, there's no way you can say this is what I want to live from abroad. I always use the example, if you want to fish, you must sit next to the lake or the dam. Yes, I would highly advise you to come over, settle in for a week or three, find your feet, look around, look where your job is. We have some beautiful communities everywhere. The prices vary as well. And you have to look at your budget, of course. Money with the exchange rate, the rand to the dollar is a big, big concern. Something you obviously have to consider. So I can most definitely tell you, we did not know when we came to Vancouver where we're going to stay. We ended up in a motel. We moved once or twice, and we found a little nice place. We actually still have that property in Vancouver, which, by the way, we're renting to South Africans as well. Then when we went to Regina, we followed a project, as I mentioned, and we looked for a rental home, and we found something that suited us in a community 15 kilometers from Regina downtown, and we loved it. Um, Rather than staying in town, we wanted to be a bit more on the outskirts where we can enjoy, especially the northern lights at night when it was nice and dark outside the city. And then coming to Toronto, again, we ended up in a hotel and a motel for a while. And it took us about 2 months to find this specific house. And we love it here. So I don't think you can make a decision before you actually land here where you would like to stay. One concern that people have is we want good schools. I did address that earlier on. Schools are, in my opinion, through the bank are good. I've never heard of a bad school. There are not so desirable areas like you have in any city anywhere in the world. And of course, we know that you will not end up there. But I would say 90% of towns, cities are well suited. The houses look about the same. The life carries on the same way. It's a little bit more or less traffic. There's not a lot of scenery. It's not like you have a wonderful uh, Somerset or Strand view over Gordons Bay or a nice view over a lake somewhere in the Bosveld. Um, it's all the same. So come over, have a look, make your make your decision at that time.
Absolutely. So you guys, when you settled into Stony Creek, Hetty, you guys are quite involved in the community. Tell us more about how are you, especially when you guys landed in Stony Creek not so long ago. You were over 40 again, and it takes some effort to get involved in the community. And that's what I think everybody tells everyone is don't just expect to get involved. You need to take the effort to go out and get involved in the community. What have you guys done to get yourself involved?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and in a way, a difficult question to answer. But I'll tell you from our experience. There are so many organizations that you can volunteer, and especially the children when they get to high school, it's very good for them to volunteer and get involved in the community, whether it's the SPCA, whether it's the retirement home. We, for instance, joined a photography club. Uh, of course, the baby boomers are more how do we say, uh, prevalent in our society. So uh, at over 50 and so forth, we settled in with the photographic club and made some very good friends. And yes, don't expect to only have South African friends. It's so nice to visit with South Africans or have them come over for a braai or meet them at the picnics over summer or go camping with them. But yes, you have to realize you and your children are now in Canada, and you will make friends with Canadians of all nationalities. When I say that, of course, we have people from all over the world becoming Canadian citizens. So you will have friends from many, many different countries. Expect to make friends with them, assimilate into the society. Every culture has a story to tell. The foods are interesting. So yes, of course, like I said, the South Africans will always be there, and they are everywhere. And no matter where we go, the moment we start talking, people will actually recognize our accent and say, "Oh, you're from South Africa. Which part?" Where in the United States, they thought we were from the UK or from Australia. And of course, they would say, "Do you know my doctor, Dr. van der Merwe?" And
Because everyone's a doctor, every South
everybody knows
African.
a South African doctor, or it's a South African doctor that provides health services to them. So yeah, you don't need to live in a certain town or a city to be with South Africans. We are everywhere. And your biltong and your scarp choppies are being shipped to you from a variety of South African stores that specialize in catering for South Africans. So that answers the question. I think for us, it was getting into photography. Um, we also involved with the South African church. My wife and I lead a small community. We had a Zoom service again this morning. We forced to have a service because of the great distances between us. But twice a month we meet at a hall and enjoy each other's company. And of course, it's wonderful to worship in your own language. And we actually do it in bilingual. For the children's sake, like we said earlier on, they change over to English if they're not English speaking so quickly. And it's good for them to have our culture, our norms and values being served to them and in a church that they understand as well. So it's up to you. It's your lifestyle that'll determine who you make friends with, where do you find people with common interests. But nothing to worry
Absolutely.
about until you actually hear.
Absolutely. And Hetty, what experiences do you find from the parents when they land? What do the moms ask you? Do they have specific questions that they go, what do I do with this?
Where do I buy warm clothes for the little ones? Where do I buy groceries? What about their driver's licenses? That's usually one of the first questions. And do I have to pass it right away? Do I have a second chance? Uh, how's how will the friends be for the kids? Are
Yeah,
they
that's a big one.
good? Um, taking us to and I usually recommend taking them to the library where the smaller kids can settle in very quickly with friends over there. There's parks around us, and all the people that have stayed here visited the parks, made very good friends with somebody else at the park immediately, connecting with Canadians. That's about it for right now.
Yeah, I think that what happens with especially at the libraries and at the parks is there's lots for the kids. The programs in Canada, doesn't matter where you stay in Canada, is that the activities for children, especially younger children, there's lots of activities to do for them, and most of them are for free. So you'll find that it's easy for the kids to settle in and make friends, even if they don't start, right away with school, if there might be a break. You can get them introduced to friends, and you'll also find one of the great things is South Africans connect with South Africans. So if they know you, then you will say, you know what, let me introduce you to, this person that's also a South African and they've got kids the same age, and you'll find that South Africans always want to help each other. So the community is great. But the community is not just South Africans, it's whoever you let into but you need to take that first step to get the kids involved in that. And then I want to end off by asking you guys the same question I ask everybody every time is, if you could give out one piece of advice for free to the people that's about to come to Canada, what would that be?
I would say take a deep breath, say your goodbyes, and embark on an adventure of your lifetime. It is a wonderful experience. There's so much difference between the two countries. There's so much difference in everything you see, do. The air smells different. The water tastes different. Everything is so different, and it's so unique. If you embrace the opportunity or the new lifestyle that you're bringing your family to, you will have a blast. Don't be scared. Life brings you to this wonderful country. People are very friendly, very helpful. The South Africans stick together. We have lots of social events. You won't be here for long, and you will feel that, why didn't we do this 10 years earlier in our lives? And we wish we actually did it 20 years earlier than what we actually did. So it's a wonderful adventure. Come over. You are making the right decision. I always tell the people when they're at the airport and they tell us how sad the goodbyes was at the airport in South Africa, I say to them, you're only a flight away. Yes, it's a longer flight, but it's still a flight away. And if you feel like it, you can always get on the flight and go home and visit your family, but they will be more interested to come visit you and see what you have done and what you've achieved. And I can tell you this much, everybody that comes over are extremely successful. Our work ethics, our religion, our upbringing is very solid. We will succeed no matter where we move to in the world. So kudos to the South Africans. We have a very good reputation in the workplace, in society. And yes, the advice is do it. Don't hesitate. You're making the right decision.
I can absolutely vouch for that's great advice. Thank you so much. So that's all for today's episode of the Howzit.ca podcast. So thank you for listening, and thank you so much to Gerhard and Hettie for joining us today and telling their personal journey from South Africa to America and finally losing their heart to Canada. It's been great having you on the show, and we look forward to chatting to you again.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you for the good work you're doing to help our South Africans coming over. Thank you.
Thank you.
very
We love
much.
doing it.
And
Thanks, Hettie.
we are here to help each and everyone that needs help.
Absolutely. South Africans supporting South Africans, right?
Absolutely.
This episode of the Howzit.ca podcast has ended, but be sure to subscribe for more casual conversations, success stories, and advice to South Africans in Canada.